The World Cup journey has come to an end for the Canadian team. A round of 16 loss to Morocco, 3-0 the final. These fans living the journey with them. There is a lot to be proud of and inspired by. There are a lot of questions to be asked, as much as expected of this program moving forward. We're going to welcome you into Bet365 for the win right here on One Soccer. A beautiful home for the beautiful game. Andy Petrillo, Gareth Wheeler, and Amy Walsh with you. 3-0 is the final against Morocco. The Canadians accomplishing many firsts here at this tournament. We'll get to that in just a moment, but we do want to talk about the game because, Wheels, it was a really strong effort by the Canadians, but does it kind of leave you a little bit with what could have been as well?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B here. And I'm not one to sit on the fence, but I think that's the predominant emotion coming out of this is disappointment that Canada weren't able to take advantage of what they established in the first half, which was probably their best 45 minutes of football at this World Cup, and really the team executing Jesse Marsch's model, his game state to a T, and the fact that Morocco weren't at their best. I think that they were caught up in playing a very negative Netherlands side, and they weren't fully prepared for what Canada was going to bring to the table. They lost their talisman in Sabari. So there were so many things that were going Canada's way, except the one most important thing, and that was the finish. And that's what's so disappointing there, because the game then turned into all of these flaws or shortcomings that we've experienced watching Canada over the last 2 years under Jesse Marsch. Not being clinical enough in front of goal, not creating enough big chances, struggles both taking and defending set pieces, and the in-game adjustments or lack thereof certainly was glaring in the end. So yeah, based on the way the game started, disappointment because the team played so well, and then the wind just gets taken out of their sails. It's an uphill climb from there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, maybe a different word other than disappointment, but I think they failed to capitalize on the dominance. I think that was the big thing for me, especially after the 45. And we've seen Canada do this. Wheels, we were talking about it in the green room. Like, they concede that goal versus Switzerland in the 46th minute. We saw a similar story tonight where they give one up. They concede in the 50th minute where it just seemed like they switched off. It was beautifully executed by the Moroccans, but Canada went to sleep there. So you just look at the way that the game was managed. We can dissect the personnel, the substitutions, the timing of everything. I think pride also in the way that Canada expressed themselves fully as Canada. I really love that because I was on record as saying, we hadn't seen Canada at their best so far this World Cup. The first 15 minutes was a masterclass in Jesse Marsch ball, where it was high tempo, it was aggressive, it was connected, and it was smothering. And you saw Morocco, as you mentioned, tired from 120 minutes versus the Dutch, not really be able to find an answer, but again, failed to punish. And what Canada needs to layer on to be able to compete with top 20 or top 10 teams is that in-game management of the moments, but also of the game comprehensively.
Particularly coming out of the second half, like, you knew that Morocco were going to go into the group and just maybe refresh or bring some new ideas to the table. You knew that they were going to come out after the half and throw their best punch, kind of like Switzerland did, scoring twice in the first 15 minutes. And Canada didn't respond. Like, you being on national teams, when you come out of the room, you almost need to just say, okay, they're going to take a few blows or to throw a few punches our way to start the second half. We just need to withstand it. We need to just sit back and maybe play a little bit more mature, maybe in a different way. And they just weren't able to do that, or were reluctant to do it. One of those two things. And that's why, like, the game model we spoke about on last night's show was, if Morocco plays their best, it's going to be a really difficult day for Canada. But Morocco didn't play their best. That's why it kind of, the game script leaned into the fact that Canada could have got something out of this. And I think that that's what the players are reacting to as well. They're proud of what they've accomplished, but they might be thinking to themselves, what if at this point?
Yes, because I think they'll be feeling gutted that it was there for the taking.
Yes.
And they failed to seize it with both hands.
So what you're saying is they gave us too much hope.
No such thing. No
It's the hope that kills you, Andy.
It is the hope that kills you. We're going to do deeper dives into some of the decision making here, but what about the personnel decisions, right? Because we did wonder who would be part of the starting 11, if Jesse Marsch was going to clog up that midfield. He didn't. He stuck to it. But was there, his typical formation is what I mean. But were there any personnel decisions that stuck out to you?
Well, the Cornelius injury came as a surprise, I think, to everyone involved, and that meant that Defugero and Bombito were going to play, because aside from Joel Waterman, those were your only fit center back. So that position kind of selected itself. It was surprising to me that Nathan Saliba didn't see the field today, because I think that he's a real bright spot for this Canadian team. Nico Sugar played very well, and I think he got to the point where Marsh didn't want to pull the strings or change anything. And he didn't change the formation either. So that meant if he was still going to play the 4-4-2, that it meant that a striker was going to lead the line. And the fact that it was Tani Oluwaseyi, and the best chance of the game fell to Tani. Now, Tani helped create that moment by a really nice turn, but this is what's haunted Oluwaseyi over his time with Canada, just his inability to take advantage of the moment and put the ball into the back of the net. Oluwaseyi's had so many near misses when he leads the line for Canada, but he exhibits all the other requisite skill sets and traits that Jesse Marsh loves. Just in a game like this with few moments, just you need to be able to take advantage of them. The other fell to Jonathan David as well when the ball fell inside the area.
Instead of skipped away from him.
Maybe if he takes the first touch, is a little bit more aggressive. He was a little bit too passive in that moment. Maybe he can finish. So those selections stood out. And the fact that only one change was made before the 78th minute surprised me that Jesse didn't make a change a little bit sooner as well. But I think upon greater reflection in this tournament, we'll wonder if Jesse maybe regrets. He probably doesn't, because he's stubborn in his approach, not trying to play a three-man midfield, just to try to put Jonathan David in a different position. Because he, alongside Tajon Buchanan, aside from the game against Qatar when David scored the hat trick, it wasn't either one of their best tournaments. And now Jonathan David scored in one World Cup game out of the 8 he's played. And you want your best players performing at the highest level, and they still don't think in that number 10 role, that was a hill that Jesse Marsh was willing to die on. I just don't think it brought the best out of his number 10.
There's a lot to unpack there, Wheels. I'm going to say that your 11 that you put out last night on the For the Win show, I suggested putting Luc de Fougerolles with a Moise Bombito. That happened. Yeah. I suggested Nico Sugar in the midfield. I also suggested Ali Ahmed. So that's a win for Amy. Yeah. Let's just put it out there. For the win. Yes, and I think that those three players played up to their standard and beyond. And I think personnel arguments, timing, yes. I think that Jesse Marsh should have pulled the trigger earlier on these substitutions. I wanted to see Promise David maybe for 45 minutes or Promise David for a half an hour. Because there's the argument Tani Oluwaseyi can't finish his dinner. We know that. We've seen it at the national team level.
Or lunch or breakfast. Yeah.
Perhaps, yes, maybe a brunch. But I think that Promise David has shown that he could be this team's talisman if he has the fitness and he gets the minutes, because his strike rate is phenomenal. But I think what you did see all over the pitch, three-man midfield aside, who's going in number 9? Is Jonathan David too far away from the goal to really see success? He just didn't perform today. I thought the second half he was let down by his own performance, but I think Canada all over the pitch executed to perfection, except for the ruthlessness that was required in the box.
Well, exactly. And goals are what win you the games. And that's what eluded the Canadians here today as we take you now to the bracket. They do not get to move on. Morocco, the first team to move on. They will face the winner here of France and Paraguay. That game happening right now as we are doing this show. And you can see the other teams that will go head-to-head to move on to the quarterfinal of this World Cup. Well, let's head now to Christian Jack. This powered by General Mills taking in this action. I just got Gareth and Amy's big picture thoughts on this match. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that Canada performed outstandingly for 45 minutes. I mean, when you hold a team that we were told were a Goliath coming into the game to one touch in your opposition's box through 44 minutes, you almost played the perfect half in a week where Canada made Morocco to be the perfect team. So you go out there and you play that way in the first half, and you look at the way Canada played up to an opponent. It's very familiar to watch them live the way that I have done against all these other super teams. It was very familiar to me the way that they played Argentina in the opening game of Copa America. But unfortunately for Canada, it became all too familiar after half-time when Argentina scored the same minute that day, by the way, 12 seconds from a set piece from a throw-in. And this time, again, a little bit of an error from a set piece as well. The thing that will stick with Canadians is, could they just have found a goal and make the game play on their terms. And I think we're going to talk about this. I'll do a hit again tomorrow from Houston for a long time in this reflective phase of what's gone on in this World Cup. And there's going to be so much time to talk about the encouragement and the positivity and how wonderful a time this has been for Canadian football. But right now, when it's raw, those players, you could sense it, that there's just a little bit of a missed opportunity, that they couldn't play the game on their term. And if you think about the World Cup, down against Bosnia, couldn't really play the game on their term much until Larin was able to get that goal. Qatar was obviously a dominant performance. Switzerland, they never were able to really play it on their terms either. And the South Africa game was just a typical fight in a knockout game where it went back and forth, but not really what Canada wanted to do either in the transitioning game. Today, for 45 minutes, they played it in their terms. And I thought they were great. They were at a mid-block. They didn't necessarily work too hard on the press. They didn't give Morocco anything. And I know you guys were critical of Jonathan David, but I thought he was brilliant for 45 minutes. He didn't take his chance, but the amount of work that he did to cut the passes off to their midfield was outstanding. Maybe he needed to be in the stadium to see it, but the fight that he had, and I know Jonathan David is going through a really difficult time right now. He's not helped by the service. No team has crossed more balls at this World Cup than Canada, and quite frankly, some of the crosses haven't been good enough. And he will admit himself as a superstar, he's allowed to have that kind of focus on him, and he needs to be better. But when you can't score goals or when you can't produce that magic, the work rate and the effort that he put in to block those passing lanes off, I thought was really special. And that's what Canada had. Ultimately, they had that work rate, and you can't fault them for that.
So when it comes to Jonathan David, then, do you think that Jesse Marsch needs to do something then to either get him that service or put him... I know this is like a conversation we had going into the World Cup here, KJ, but I think a lot of people, as great as he's being defensively, don't want to see that from Jonathan David. They want to see him scoring.
Well, Morocco had over 60% possession in the first half. So we have to talk about what Jonathan David did without the ball as well. We can all talk about a missed opportunity here or he didn't score enough goals. But like that, you spend a lot of the time without the ball. You have to analyze a player in doing what they do without the ball. And whether you play him as a 10 or a 9, the role is still the same. You have to block off those passes. You have to be combative. You have to understand the pressing game. And you have to try and get in those positions. There will be time again to have this old argument about should he play as a 9? Should they have played a midfield 3? We said it last night. It was never going to happen. Never. There was no way that Jesse Marsch was going to do that. And you could say that maybe he got it wrong, but based on the way that the game played, not the outcome or the result, the way that the game played, you could probably say that he got it right. They had the system and shape in the right way. Everything. You could put a blanket over 2 banks of 4 and the front 2. So for me, the way that they worked without the ball, there's absolutely no issues for me. The next step for this team is finding the way to score the goal when you're on top in the game. And the moment you get hit by that knockdown punch, in boxing they call them type 1 knockouts, you get knocked down by that knockout punch, this team consistently under Marsch has struggled to fight back. Just 3 times. They did it once against Bosnia. Just 3 times they've had it in 35 games where they've gone down and they found a way to get that equalizer. We've seen it in Copa America. We've seen it in Gold Cups. When the tide is turned and it goes against them, they found a difficult switch to go back, and that comes down to the final third. The hardest thing to do in the game is to score goals, and it's clear with the ball, their attacking players were not at their best at this World Cup. They missed big-time game changers. Alphonso Davies we'll get to in a second. Flores, Kone, players that can break lines and make teams be very, very uncomfortable. But that's what they missed. But the other players were nowhere near at their best, and they know that themselves.
So let's talk about the players here and how they were feeling after this match and now bowing out of the World Cup.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting mix of emotion because you're not going to speak to these players again now. So we're trying to get their quotes on how did the game go and reflections on the World Cup. Richie Larea said there's a lot to be proud of, but, he hesitated and said, look, we're disappointed. We know we had something that we could have got from this game. Alistair Johnson said, we don't fear anybody. We showed the way that we played today that we don't fear anybody. And I think that's an interesting point from a leader like that he saw his 11 players today and more and say, we didn't fear them. And in the past, they've hoped to win. Today, I think they thought they could win, and that's a difference in belief. Stefan Eustaquio said that Jesse Marsch at halftime said it was was the best 45 minutes that the team has played under him. So those are interesting remarks to say, obviously, about that. But ultimately, again, it's not the ultimate result that they wanted. But in the last 16 World Cup, it's tough.
It is. We're going to dive more, obviously, into Alphonso Davies, but I will ask you right now, you had a chance to speak to him after the game. There are a lot of thoughts right now about not just this game and not seeing him, but his role in this tournament as a whole. But what did he have to say after this one?
So here's what we learned about Alphonso Davies. We were told he was on a minutes restriction last week, and he played that minutes restriction. Number of sources told me that if it went to extra time, he was coming off in that game. That's how strict the minutes restriction was. Going into this game, as of 48 hours ago, that minutes restriction, I believe, had been extended. Not exactly sure, probably 30 minutes. And then we found out what happened. Jesse Marsch talked about it afterwards, where he hoped he would go. And Alphonso Davies met with me afterwards, and here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I know obviously in training I felt a little bit something, but at the end of the day, me and Jesse had a conversation. He said, like, if I feel 100%, I told him no, to be honest. Obviously, we want players on the pitch that are 100% to play the game and 100% to give everything, and I felt like, I wasn't there yet, and so this is why we made the decision. I don't want to be a burden on the team or on the pitch, and I'll give my all. Every time I play the game, I want to give my all. And fully play this game, with freedom and no injuries. But at this time it was tough. Obviously it was tough sitting there watching the game, knowing I'm not 100%. But yeah, just wanted to see how it is. It's an injury where you can't take any risk. Obviously with my history of hamstring injury, I had it 3 times back to back in the last 6 months. Or 3-4 months, it's something that's very delicate, especially, with my game, there's a lot of speed, a lot of running. So if a player is not 100%, that that has that speed, it's tough. It's tough to give everything. Yeah, I was just trying to see how it is, but obviously, 24 hours not going to magically, make your hamstring injury or hamstring tweaks go away. So I was just trying to see how it is. Maybe I could have, gone in, but yet again, I was doing my sprints, and every time I took a step, I felt something.
So Davies speaking to me clearly clears up some things. There was a lot of question marks during the game, particularly when Jacob Schaffelberg came on in a position you'd expect Alphonso Davies to come in, and when you're only down by a goal in a knockout World Cup game, that Alphonso Davies didn't come in. He didn't warm up the entire game. I asked him about it, and you heard the answers there. He was sprinting during halftime, and you could see then, obviously, he was trying something. Now we know, Alphonso said after the game, that he felt something. Now, we're clearly in that raw phase after the game. There's a lot of passion from some Canadian fans and other members of the media questioning why he wasn't in the game. The big thing for me is, what do the players and Jesse Marsch think? And Jesse Marsch said we wanted him in the game. Stefan Eustáquio said afterwards, we needed him in the game, but he couldn't go. And I think that's all that we need to know right now. Is we'll find out maybe in months, years to come, what they truly feel about this. But as he alluded to, if he felt something in his hamstring, I don't think anybody can really expect Alphonso Davies to go into a game like that and perform.
Yeah, this is one that we can talk about for a very long time. That is for sure. Your star player really just being limited to 15 minutes at a home World Cup. That's going to garner attention. Well, as the road comes to an end here for the Canadians at the World Cup, KJ, when you reflect on the ride for you, how would you put it into words?
It's been really special to cover this team, throughout this time. It's only been just over 3 weeks. But for so many of us, it's felt like so much more and so much longer because of how many moments we've got in our minds to remember it by. And our brain will trick us because it's not used to taking in so many images of pictures, particularly around Canadian football, that last a lifetime. This has been a sport. This has been a federation that has been clamoring for moments like this. And this was beyond all of our wildest dreams to have this. The plan was always to do their best they could and get out the group. they went far further than that. It brought us to Houston, Texas, and a 5th game that was beyond anybody's comprehension at that point. So today, it still remains what if. And I think some fans are allowed to say that. It's almost the title of what this program has always been when you write a history book about what this is. What if they were able to do that? Today, you can ask again, what if they were able to go out there and do that? But that shows how far that we've come in the last 16, that Canadian fans in a World Cup were asking, what if? What if we were able to get that goal? So for me, that's tremendous progress.
I share that sentiment. I know some people will say, oh, can't you just be happy with, you know, what they've done? And it's like, well, no, when you say what if, it means that the team has progressed to a point where you do believe they can go even further. And that's actually the ultimate compliment. KJ, thanks so much. We'll check in with you another day. Christian Jack in Houston taking this one in 3-0, the final, Morocco over Canada. And you can see the shots and the shots on target. I mean, Canada was all over Morocco in that, especially in that first half. So 10 shots total, but 3 just landing on target. Whereas Morocco, you could say a little bit more efficient, 5 shots, 4 on target, 3 of them converting into goals. And when you look, I guess, at some of those metrics and also just the intangibles, it prompted Jesse Marsch to say that they were the better team. He liked the way they played in the first half, even parts in the second half as well. And here's the full quote. We were the much better team. First half, even beginning of second half, what a privilege our fans have had to root a team on like this. I'd rather be us than them, as good as Morocco is. I'd rather be us. But let's just focus on the better team because, Amy, I mean, it's a simple question. If they were the better team, why didn't they win?
It's that lack of clinical edge again, and maybe lack of game management, as Wheels and I already alluded to off the top. But what I really liked about Canada's first half, I in particular loved the first 15 minutes because frequently as players, that's the way you compartmentalize the match, that you can manage it yourself mentally, but also physically, and frequently tactically, that's the way that you'll kind of meet it out so you can address it and meet it head on. But I thought that Canada were direct and they were incisive. Like KG talked about some struggles in the final third. I didn't see that through 45. I thought Canada looked like they had a plan. I thought Segur more direct, and I thought they looked dangerous on set pieces. And also the recycled play after, like a corner kick. Eustachio's service was great. Canada wasn't able to capitalize on that either, but they stayed there. They kept Morocco pinned. So again, your question is why they were the better team, but why weren't they the better team at the end of the day and get the win on the score sheet? I think they're just missing that player. Like you look at Morocco, they were not good on the day, especially in the first 45 minutes. They were second best across 90, but they had players willing to step up or who could step up because they have that quality. And maybe Canada is just missing that in a bunch of different spots on the pitch, but also somebody like Jonathan David. Like I think that, you know, to talk about him off the ball is great. He does do a tremendous amount of work, but ultimately he is judged by putting the ball in the back of the net. And he had one opportunity that could be classified as a half chance, but it has to be buried.
Yeah, I don't want to. Look, we're going to continue this conversation because it's so important, because that is Jesse Marsch's decision to play Jonathan David in a way where we're judging his defensive contributions and not what he's doing inside the box. This is Canada's best player inside the 18. He made his big move, not only to Lille, but to Juventus, because he's so effective inside the area, not tracking back and defending off the ball. This is therein the problem with Jesse Marsch's style of play, is that it hasn't developed enough on the ball. Off the ball, it's fine. We all agree on that. They're difficult to play against. It's on the ball. Like, Jonathan David isn't a bad player. Tajon Buchanan isn't a bad player, but they both look lost in the system, what you actually do once you get in and around the attacking third, if the move isn't created out of chaos. I'll say this, it's very difficult to make the argument that you are the better team on the day when you lose 3-0. I understand why he's saying that, because for long stretches of the game, they were the better team. Like, that was plain to see. But you also need to judge about your decisiveness in key moments, like preventing goals, where Canada still finds themselves far too open too many times for my liking, and they've got away with it in a lot of games. And today, once the game got a little bit stretched, there was no avoiding that from the game getting out of hand. It's also the finishing. That's the nature of it. So I don't think that Canada were the better team, although they were for long stretches. It's that last comment. It's a lot of what Jesse Marsh is saying there and elsewhere and before and after. There's a lot of truth in it. And I think it really galvanizes the players, the country. That's why people like him so much. But then the naysayers to Jesse Marsh, he just takes things a little bit too far. Saying, I'd rather be us than them. One team is moving on and playing in the final eight of the World Cup. The other team is moving home. And that just sounds completely out of touch with reality. At some point, you need to put your stake in the ground. It's not just about creating or developing culture or making fans of the team. It's about winning games. That's what it comes down to. This is why he got so much criticism while at Leeds United. There's this quote I brought up. He said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to be judged by wins and losses. I want to be judged by creating something." Therein is the problem. Jesse always looks at the game models and can see the smaller wins within the battle. But if you end up losing the war, you end up losing people along the way. So we can say 95% of the right things along the way. If you make that little comment, it just seems performative. That's a word that's being put out there, or out of touch. So I think that his quote was fine up until that point. We can, quibble over whether they were better or not. At the end of the day, lost 3-0. That's the second biggest loss under Jesse Marsh that Canada suffered. The biggest loss was in the very first game that Jesse Marsh took charge against the Netherlands. So those are the facts. And when you deal with reality, it's very difficult to make that case.
Yeah, but I will say that the game got stretched. To your point, it was open. Canada was chasing the game. That's why it ends up 3-0. Yeah. If Canada had bunkered, maybe they could have lost, and it would have been 1-0. Maybe that's more respectable, but I see it as being more respectable because they lost 3-0, still being Canada. So I think that's something that you cling to, like, in a proud way, something that you can be proud of.
But they went down 2-0. Like, they're still in the game. They're a goal down. And I still think that they have some momentum on their side. They end up putting Jacob Schaffelberg at left back. That doesn't seem like holding your shape or sticking true to their identity.
Is that not being aggressive?
It is, but you also need to know the vulnerabilities that it leaves yourself open. I felt like they were still competitive at that part of the game, and maybe they threw too much or went too astray. Rather than bringing in fresh legs, there was a little bit too aggressive, and they lost their shape in that moment. Did you think at that time, 1-0, like, they're completely out of the game and it was time to just proceed with reckless abandon at that point? Again, that's why the scoreline ended up as it is. Like, look, the second half wasn't great overall. I think they lost control of the game. Morocco grew more comfortable as the game went on. As KJ said, they weren't playing on their own terms and things like that happened. So yeah. I'm not knocking the result. I'm just kind of explaining what happened.
Right. I want to go back to what you were talking about with Jesse Marsh. And I think there's a lot to criticize if you're a coach of a team, whether you're a professional team or you're the head coach of a national team, and you say you don't care about wins and losses. Like, of course you care about wins and losses, but he's at a point right now where he can build something, and he is building something. So I don't give a crap about the naysayers. He cares about the players in front of him in that locker room and the Canadian public. And so Morocco right now, one of the juggernauts in world football, it was basically in Canada's position in 2022. Where they shocked the world. Canada doesn't move on to quarters or to finish fourth the way that Morocco did, but they are building something right now. And I think the rest of Canada and the world is well aware of that.
You just hope that Marsh isn't just the builder here, that he's also the finisher. If they can show that they can bring in the investment, invest a little bit more into the programs, and develop and trust these players, I think they're better technically than he gives them credit for. I think they're better technically than the way that they actually play, relying on speed, pace, aggressiveness all the time. I just think there needs to be a little bit more trust and focus in on that to build. You're right, the future is bright if they proceed accordingly and grow and build and expand from here.
Well, if we're talking about building the game, a lot of people saying after the men's performance here at the World Cup that we become a soccer nation. Well, guess what? We have a national trophy that needs to be won this year, everybody. So tune in to One Soccer because the quarterfinals, leg one, begin this Wednesday. Those are the teams in action. So yes, it is the TELUS Canadian Championship. It's called the Voyageurs Cup for a reason because it was given by the fans. So if we're going to continue being the soccer nation, these are also the other competitions we support on this Canadian soil. And someone who took in a lot of action on the Canadian soil, Mackenzie Barwell's next.
For the Win on One Soccer is presented by bet365.
The game isn't over yet, but Gary just got paid. with bet365's early payout when his team went up 2 goals. Now, Gary can't stop celebrating. And honestly, we're not even sure he knows how.
Or forever hold
Download the Bet365 app and get paid out early when your team goes up 2 goals.
Canada are really pressing here. Oh, what a move. That is a quality ball. Now the run into the box.
We were there for your first game together. The day you taught him the rules and the answer for every question. We've been there for the good times and a few moments we don't talk about. And now,
Who won the most Canadian Classics?
it's a passion you can share. And we're just happy we could be there. 20 years, and we're still growing. Together.
For the Win on One Soccer is brought to you by Samsung.
Welcome back. Let's now go to Canada Soccer House in Toronto, powered by General Mills, where we will find Mackenzie Barwell. And Mackenzie, you being in Toronto, it was a rainy day in the city, but I have a feeling it didn't exactly keep the fans away cheering on Canada in this round of 16 match. What was the experience like?
You're absolutely right, Andy. And listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat it to start. It's a pretty deflating feeling knowing the scoreline likely doesn't really reflect the way that Canada played and how closely they competed with Morocco. But again, the rain didn't stop anyone from coming out. It was shoulder to shoulder here at Canada Soccer House, as it has been in the past. And listen, there was just this innate sense of belief in the crowd with every defensive recovery, with every goal scoring opportunity. There was this feeling of, okay, Canada can really do this. But again, Morocco are ranked 6th in the world. We had reasonable expectations coming into this, but I just have a feeling, based on the amount of people who showed up, the recurring faces I saw, that it'll really affect the sport in this country going forward. An absolutely historic run from our men's national program.
You were able to take in matches at Canada Soccer House in both Toronto and Vancouver. And the one thing that is so special about this sport in comparison to others, I'm not trying to sit here and say who's better, who's not, but the supporters groups just create an experience that is second to none. And you've been part of some epic marches to the stadiums. How would you also just say the experience has been watching fans, whether it's the Canadian fans or just all across the world, coming together to support their teams?
Andy, don't even get me started on the marches, okay? Those have genuinely been my favorite part of the World Cup, and I'm so glad you brought that up. But listen, it goes beyond Canada fans, right? Like, this country is an international country. We have so many different cultures. It really is a cultural mosaic. But I'm just so pleased to see the investment grow in this sport, specifically in Canada. I remember that first game against Bosnia. Mostly you heard the name Alphonso Davies. Everybody kind of had a surface level understanding of who this team was. And even today I'm overhearing striker debates. Who should start? Kyle Larin, Daniel O'Shea. You're hearing praise of Luc Defuzerol. So people are just really into this team specifically. They're going to be more bought into the sport going forward. And I have really enjoyed watching football culture in Canada grow. I also saw, hockey sticks waving Canada flags. Obviously, there's the infamous Norway row, but you see Canadians in Vancouver rowing canoes, right? So it's just our own version of what football culture looks like. And listen, it all comes back to the marches, okay? It doesn't matter if you're in the stadium, if you were a part of, that specific thing. I have no words. It's been a phenomenal experience, and I'm grateful to have been in Vancouver and Toronto.
Well, and I'm sure you've learned some new chants along the way, which I can't wait to hear, because in the meantime, you survived also those marches. You deserve a bit of a break there, Mackenzie. It's been great watching your stuff, and we'll catch up after. This is Our House, presented by Samsung. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty now and talking Alphonso Davies. Just a little bit of a synopsis here. As you know, when you look back at even before the tournament started, he had gone on a podcast. He had said that we would most likely not see him during the group stage. He had reiterated he had to be very careful with his hamstring. 3 injuries in a row, which we also saw he once again said post-game here. Canada Soccer had that podcast pulled because they wanted to control the messaging a little bit here on Alphonso Davies. The decoy issue comes out and just plays 15 minutes over 5 games. We do not see him here against Morocco either. Maybe it's a little bit harsh asking this, but it'll be asked anyways, Gareth. Was it a mistake to bring Alphonso Davies? Or was it a mistake to make him part of the 26?
I don't think that was the mistake, but I think there's been a lot of mistakes after that has happened. So we can document this. First, I want to say, seeing Alphonso Davies speak post-match to Christian Jack, he's a sympathetic character. I feel really bad for the young man because clearly, he's not in a very good place physically or mentally with everything that he's gone through over the last, 15, 16 months or so. I genuinely feel really bad for Alphonso. At the same time, I think it's an easy sentiment to have if a lot of Canadians, a lot of onlookers are frustrated by the situation as well. And let's start off with the communication, because I think the communication around Davies' availability or lack thereof has been a mess since day number 1. There were 2 options if this was the state of play when it came to Alphonso Davies entering this tournament. 1, you name him to the team, which they did. You come out and say, look, he's our 26th player. We hope that he moves up on the depth chart. We hope that he's good to go. But at this point, he's going to be an X factor because we're looking out for his best interests. And we will let you know when he is ready to play. The problem is none of that was said. Optimism was built to the point where the head coach is saying he will play and that he wasn't going to play, that he was a decoy, that he ended up playing, and then he didn't end up playing. So a lot of it is circumstantial, but a lot of it could have been eased with the communication, understanding what that situation was all about. The other way they could have just done it was just not naming Alphonso Davies at all and just eliminating the distraction. They could have brought him along, you brought up this, like they did with Daniil Henry.
So in 2022, if you remember, Daniil Henry ended up getting that knee injury, but they still brought him because they knew that he was such an inspirational teammate that they still found a way to bring him. And then I wondered if that was the case, and you knew Alphonso Davies was injured, would you do that?
Right.
Yeah.
But the original diagnosis was this was going to be a 4 to 6 week injury, and then he was conceivably going to be ready to go. We're 8 weeks and 3 days since that injury was originally suffered, and his scans reportedly, according to March, according to Davies, are clean. So there's something holding him back, whether it's psychological, whether it's fear of playing. I even noticed his first couple touches in the South Africa game were very good on the ball, and then he looked really nervous to extend his legs and full-on sprint.
Opened it up.
Yeah,
never opened it up.
So he's battling. As an athlete, there's nothing worse than having a physical ailment, something that happened before, and then it gets into your head. There's no worse situation like that, and a whole lot of pressure as well as on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. The fact, though, and this is where some people might be critical of Alphonso Davies. We're used to it in the sporting world that if you're dealing with a little something in the biggest games that you'll play in, a lot of people get it out. They go out there and they will not miss out on that opportunity. It's historic in this country because we're so used to it. Stanley Cup playoffs. Guys that are playing with broken arms, that's just the reality of it. There are players playing in this World Cup right now that are nowhere near 100%, that are trying to give it a go, not only for their team, but for themselves to be part of that experience as well. This is where the lack of communication once again has opened up that door, that window of criticism towards Alphonso Davies. And Amy, right now the conversation isn't just where Alphonso stands on this in his mindset and mentality. is what is Bayern Munich saying about this because of the past? What is Canada Soccer? What is their involvement? Who's actually making the decision makers
We'll
here?
get to that in just a moment. That is a question. Take a peek at your script.
You take all the notes.
Okay, so you're saying that it wasn't, you don't have an issue, you don't think it was a mistake that they named him, you just think the messaging should have been better. Where's your take on that?
Yeah, I just want to hit on a point that Wheels made, like whether you're professional, you're playing for your country, you're never at 100%. You're always carrying a knock, and we know with the congested match fixture right now and like how many matches these guys are playing in their club season and then their national team and all these windows, nobody is ever at 100%. And it was clear in those 15 minutes where Alphonso Davies was inserted versus South Africa that he was not at 100%. I would argue that he was maybe at 70%. So I want to answer two things. So there's an ego thing that has to be managed here as well, right? This is your captain, and he wants to step in and to contribute as best as he can. Maybe he can't. Maybe they know the reality of the situation and where his health lies. So he's maybe having to be talked down or stood down, like in the Swiss match. It's played in Vancouver. That's where it all began before he was poached by Bayern Munich as a young Vancouver Whitecap kid playing there, and clearly like a high ceiling, right, for this kid who was going to come out of Vancouver. So he has to be stood down by Jesse Marsch. He wants to participate, or so we're told. So maybe the same conversation's happening, and this is a guy who has a lot of pride, a lot of ego. He wants to contribute, but maybe, again, and we'll get into the Bayern Munich thing, that is what is preventing it. But I do think here that ultimately, like, Alphonso Davies wanted to participate, and he couldn't in the way that he wanted to. But the Daniil Henry argument, I think it's apples to oranges. Daniil Henry was a depth piece in a back line that was clearly maxed out. It's not the same argument. This is your captain. So even if he can't lend you 1 minute, which would be a harder pill to swallow than 15 that he got versus South Africa, I think at this point you have your captain around for his sake, for his mental health, to feel like he's contributing, but also for this team's sake. We saw Stefan Eustáquio step up, not wearing the armband because Alphonso Davies was on the pitch. He's this team's captain. And a co-captain, they have that leadership council. So I don't have a problem with him being included in that 26. It is not a wasted roster spot because he's your captain.
Don't you just feel like it was weird the way that everything was handled?
But I think that's what I'm hearing from everybody here is the messaging. And you're right. Like, I'm not trying to say Daniil Henry and Alphonso Davies are the same player. I'm saying that if you wanted to find a way to bring a player to be inspirational, there's ways to do it. And you're both in agreement that Alphonso Davies being on the 26 is fine, but are you agreeing then that maybe the messaging, because even with the players, like KJ saying that Stefan Eustáquio is now also lamenting, we're a different team when he's playing. Like, even the players themselves seem to have hope that he would have played more. So it also seems like the messaging was a little chaotic even within the squad. Is our captain playing or is he not? But if it's understood, our captain's not at 100%, and even at 70, he doesn't seem good to go, but he's here because he's just going to be supporting us and he's going to be motivational. But then there was always that hope that he was going to come on, and I feel like maybe that's where things just kind of went off the rails a little bit with the messaging around Davies' participation.
That was a misstep.
Yeah.
That's where Jesse Marsch got it wrong. Because to me, on the inside as a player, you saw a reticence from the players to speak plainly. And you talked about how sympathetic and engaging and the way that he can garner empathy from the fan base when Alphonso Davies steps up to a microphone. But we don't see it. So if they had put him in front of the cameras a little bit more, allowed a little bit more press, you're still controlling the messaging a little bit and that narrative, but you allow players to speak freely. When you're a player on the inside and you have to be guarded and you're not sure of what the messaging is today, what am I allowed to say, what can't I, whether it's tactics or a little bit of gamesmanship and shiny object with Alphonso Davies, who's clearly our best player, and you want to strike fear in the opponents, it's not done that way. So I think that was mishandled by Jesse Marsch, because I think ultimately it could have been a massive distraction, but they were able to manage it.
Yeah. I'll just say there were sensitivities around Alphonso Davies. Like, we know that he's not Daniil Henry, he's not Moise Bombito or Alfie Jones or any of the other injured players either. He is Alphonso Davies, the face of Canadian soccer right now, and also a player who is injured in a meaningless third-place game 15 months ago playing for Canada. We know what happened between Bayern Munich, the agent, and Canada Soccer at that time. All you needed to do was be clear. All that the head coach of Canada had to say is we hope that Alphonso Davies plays. Not he's playing, he's a decoy. And honestly, a lot of the comments today and in previous days when Canada's played, where is Alphonso Davies? If it's about growing the sport in this country, the public is expecting to see Canada's best player play because the head coach has told them that he's going to be able to play. If this wasn't the case from the start, it's just being handled completely in the wrong way. This is where I just advocate. Just be clear in your communication.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to have a conspiracy theory here in 2026. Now, Bayern's to blame, everyone's to blame.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the world that we live in. So I hope that this is a key learning moving forward. And my concern now, guys, Davies doesn't play here. He's reluctant to play. When will we see him play for Canada next?
Yeah.
That is an open-ended question.
Well,
I don't think it's coming around.
I got to control the
soon.
show now because I think the question we all have moving forward is who is making the decisions? Is it Alphonso? Is it Canada Soccer? Is it Bayern Munich when it comes to his participation with the national team? Who makes that ultimate call? All right, either way, though, this World Cup, lots of feelings when it comes to Canada's performance. Historic, and it was absolutely brilliant on so many levels. But the what if is because they have given hope, and this is a team that has proven they can get it done. When we come back, we'll give our overall thoughts on the journey of Les Rouges for 2026.
For the Win on One Soccer is brought to you by General Mills. For the Win on One Soccer is brought to you by Turkey Farmers of Canada.
In Canada, our future stars don't simply show up on the world stage. They are built from the ground up, right here in the heart of our communities.
Oh, lovely through ball there, Isaiah Johnson! Goal for Halifax!
From a childhood dream to the national team.
Jacob Schaffelberg! Yes! He's done it! Canada on top of the footballing world!
We are Canada, driven by Volkswagen.
And for Canada, BMO.
After 20 years of supporting the game, we're actually going to play in one. Let's go! So what do you need? Precision striker, rock solid left back?
We need a coin.
For the coin toss? Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I get. Can I at least flip it? Heads or tails? I'll do that. We're on TV right now. Yeah.
Hey neighbor, meet Walmart Plus, the new membership that does delivery differently. I'm talking unlimited free same-day delivery, free shipping, and no order minimum. And it comes with a Crave subscription too. Yeah, it's like a 2-for-1. Try it free for 30 days. Walmart Plus.
For the Win on One Soccer is presented by bet365.
So many firsts for the men's program at this World Cup. First point, first win, first clean sheet, first appearance in a knockout stage. We also saw Jonathan David get the first hat trick as well. It was very impressive, a lot of the things that were accomplished here. So much to digest for this program. And of course, now you start to also, as much as you reflect, you also start to look ahead and say, now what do you do with this to really expand the ecosystem of soccer in this country? But let's allow ourselves a moment to reflect here, Amy. And you look at these games, 5 games that the Canadian men have given us. How do you feel about it?
I feel like they instilled belief. I think it's off the back of success that our women's team had and the surprise qualification to Qatar. Just getting the first goal there, we know Alphonso Davies had that, but much to prove. And I think much to be gained and much to build on. Like, the buy-in was instant with Jesse Marsh, and I think tapping into a talent pool in this country that aligned with a playing style and a philosophy that could really extract the best out of all of these players, and then some ebbs and flows that they had to ride out, like the game today. Perhaps it could have been managed a little bit better, but I think ultimately, Marsh will be judged on the end of this next contract, which is another 4 years. But really, when he's talking about building something, it's about how do we become a soccer nation, because we're not quite there yet. Wheels and Andy, right? Like, it's about success. How do you get eyeballs? How do you get attention and engagement? It's by way of results. So you lost that by not moving on to the quarterfinals. But I think everything that you've gained is that these players are household names. But now how many fans that followed them, whether it's to Houston or to Vancouver from Toronto and then to LA in between, will follow these players now that they're back at club? Just a second, and then also NSL, CPL, bums in seats, grassroots, investment, infrastructure, all of those boxes have to be ticked in order for this to be qualified as a rousing success.
I'm really looking forward to a day where every second question is Canada a soccer nation anymore? I cannot wait for that day, because there's so much evidence is that we're there, and let's get out of this very inward-looking notion of just are we good enough? Are we being accepted?
The inferiority complex?
The inferiority complex that permeates. And I understand why. I get it. But there's more than enough evidence to suggest that people give a damn. A lot of people give a damn. And the people that didn't care before, they had a whole lot of fun watching this team, more so than anything else. Honestly, I'm not one of those that are overriding success. This was a 48-team World Cup. And I'm not trying to diminish their accomplishment, but they did have the easiest path of any team in World Cup history. But, here's my big but. The team is fun to watch. The country's galvanized around them. It was emotional. Playing on home soil, hearing O Canada play, seeing the crowds like we saw, the Ismail Kone injury, the way the players responded. There's so much to like about these players. And that's the big home run and hit here. Because I think they can be even better going forward. I think that we just got a taste of it right here. We had a taste of it in Qatar. We had a bigger serving here. But the main course is upcoming in 2030. That's where everything needs to be geared towards. Everything locally, nationally, everything now turns to 2030. And I can't wait. The women next summer, the men in 2030, we still got a lot to look forward to.
I was going to say it just turns to a few months from now, because the women have their qualification at the end of November, December to qualify for the World Cup for the women, which will be next summer, and the Olympics as well. So yeah, you want to jump on this bandwagon, you can stay on it, because there's always a lot of footy to watch. Yes. The World Cup, though, does go on, and we're going to bring you Wheeler's Parlay of the Day. When we return, we got some big battles happening tomorrow. You continue to watch Bet365 for the win on One Soccer.
For the Win on One Soccer is brought to you by General Mills. For the Win on One Soccer is brought to you by Turkey Farmers of Canada.
We were there for your first game together. The day you taught him the rules and the answer for every question. We've been there for the good times and a few moments we don't talk about. And now,
Who won the most Canadian Classics?
it's a passion you can share. And we're just happy we could be there. 20 years, and we're still growing. Together.
Hey neighbor, meet Walmart Plus, the new membership that does delivery differently. I'm talking unlimited free same-day delivery, free shipping, and no order minimum. And it comes with a Crave subscription too. Yeah, it's like a 2-for-1. Try it free for 30 days. Walmart Plus.
Canada are really pressing here. Oh, what a move. That is a quality ball. Now the run into the box.
A player Mike bet on just missed an open net tap-in and got subbed off.
I could have scored that in jeans!
Mike doesn't know it yet, but thanks to Bet365's sub-on play-on,
The net was wide open!
his prop bet rolls over to the fresh leg sub coming on. So if the sub scores, Mike still wins.
False alarm, people. My bet's still good!
If your player gets subbed, your bet plays on.
For the Win on One Soccer is brought to you by Samsung.
All right, here's Sunday's schedule. World Cup, Brazil, Norway. Will Erling Haaland move on? Will Brazil move on? Mexico, England. Oh my goodness, that's going to be at the Azteca as well. Who is the Tellus player to watch in this one for you, Amy?
Oh, for me, it's Quinones. He's been so exciting to watch, so impressive. He's powerful, he's direct, unrelenting, attacks that space aggressively. You know, he would fit right into Jesse Marsch's style of football, but that's never to be. He could have played for Colombia. He chose Mexico. So he's a constant threat. He never stops pressing, makes it difficult for the opposition, which is what you hope he does at the Azteca, which is already going to be difficult for England, but leading the line, this guy also with Raul Jimenez, like this team looks very, very good at the moment.
So if you're Thomas Tuchel, do you play Jed Spence or Declan Rice?
You're not. Did you see Thomas Tuchel?
I know.
He's not playing Jed Spence.
I don't think he is.
No, he's not.
So Declan Rice against Quinones. Yeah, it's going to be a battle to watch. Bruno Guimaraes, he's already picked up 4 assists at this World Cup. That equals a Brazilian record for assists in a World Cup. That's how good he's been. He, alongside Casemiro, have been very good in that position. They're taking on the Norway side, who I think obviously are a very good attacking team, but can be exposed defensively. He's partnered with the attackers in Brazil very, very well. For me, he's going to be the player to watch to set the tone in the middle of the park for Brazil
a bit
tomorrow.
leggy, though, eh? Wheels?
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
leggy in there with Guimaraes and Casemiro.
A little bit. But they're getting by. I trust Guimaraes more than I do Casemiro at this point, who needs to be protected. Marquinhos and Gabriel behind.
That's true.
Yeah, it's a
Parlay of the day, my friend.
Yeah, here we go. Brazil to score more than a goal and a half against Norway. I don't think that's any surprise there. Brazil to advance as well at -250. And I think Mexico is going to play England very tight. It's going to be an under game. This could go either way. So take plus a goal. That means if England wins in 90 minutes by a goal, you get your stake back. Put all these 3 together. It plays at +270 on Bet365.
Make your predictions. Pick your warrior, Amy. Mexico, England. Who are you picking in this one?
I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's Mexico. Wheels is talking about get your steak back. I'm vegan. I don't ever want a steak. But, I mean, this is going to be really difficult for England, right? I think the sweet spot for dealing with altitude is you go in a little bit before, you get acclimated, or you go in the day before. They went in at the worst possible time 2 days before. It's going to be ridiculous to play in that environment where it's going to be hostile.
I'm vegetarian, so just put some cheese on it and add a side order of Harry Kane because he is he's the best player on the planet right now. And look, I understand everything that you're saying about Mexico. The gamesmanship around the kickoff time is ludicrous. There's been a lot going on. The journos all doing runs in Mexico City to prove it's difficult to breathe, to catch your breath and elevate. Forget it. England just has better man-for-man talent, but are they the better team? No. This one could go either way, so I'm just going to avoid the result entirely.
I'm on a liquid diet. Brazil or Norway?
I like Brazil. I think that Brazil are finally poised to take a step forward. Norway completely rotated their last group game against France, so I don't know what it looks like for them to go up against a heavyweight quite yet. This is going to be a big test for Norway. They've done exceptionally well at this World Cup. I think there's goals in this game. Cunha and Vinicius Jr. are being on another level.
Yep.
And I'll trust Ancelotti in a game like this. He just knows how to get the most out of his players.
He does. He's concerned about results, not so much about the yoga bonito, and I think that's proved them well up until this point. But I think with Norway, I think dark horse, written all over it, I think they go through.
I just don't want the social media from Erling Haaland to end. It is just it is entertaining, it is funny. I mean, it'll probably...
As a United supporter,
it'll probably carry on maybe if he does get eliminated, but it's always better when he's still...
The Norwegian fans have been brilliant.
They
Yes,
have.
Brilliant.
They have
Not
been
even at like
fantastic.
soccer games, at like the baseball games, they've just
They're
been
going
brilliant.
everywhere. They're just showing up everywhere. I know. Absolutely love it. Well, there you go. So, yes, unfortunately, the journey does come to an end for Canada. 3-0, the loss to Morocco in the round of 16, but more round of 16 games to go. Just taking you through the ones that you'll see tomorrow. Yes, football is at home in Canada. So much that the Canadian fans had to cheer for during the 5 games that Les Rouges gave them. Big shout out to Toronto, Vancouver, the host cities for this World Cup as well, and to all the fans who have enjoyed this ride. You can still continue enjoying it because we're still going to be doing this show nightly.